Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Creating the Vision. I am so excited for this week and my guest. This week's guest is Dr. Julie Radlauer. She is a leading expert in social influences of mental health and uses her experience to create impact with communities, systems, organizations, and individuals. Her approach is collaborative, creative, and curious. Love that. As she strives to educate utilizing unique avenues, including media, stage production, video production, podcasting, and writing. She has extensive experience in behavioral health, public health, and organizational development for more than 25 years. She speaks internationally and participated as a TEDx Miami speaker on social support and social connectedness. The coolest thing about her is she's like super down to earth, and she's like really badass. Her research on structural racism in the behavioral health field has led to the development of a national curriculum designed to create more equitable systems. She is passionate about addressing behavioral health challenges in communities and speaks widely on the topic. I cannot wait for our guests to listen to the phenomenal amazingness of Dr. Julie Radlauer. Welcome.
Thank you. Wow, what an intro.
I am so excited to have you on. I'm so excited that we're having this conversation because one, it's so pertinent, it's so imperative because you talk so much about connection, and I really want to just dive in and have you talk a little bit about how you have a workbook that's amazing. And I want to talk about how that came to be, but I also want to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself if there's anything else you want to say. But yeah, let's get into it. Let's just dive in.
Let's
Talk
just dive in.
to us about talk to us about Connect.
I just want to say thank you so much for having me here. And you're just like this amazing breath of fresh air. Like I feel just such awesome energy from you. So thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me and share your visions with me, literally your visions.
Yes.
And, and talk a little bit about the book. And I just love our collab. I love how we can figure out how to, work together. And I'm looking forward to it. So thank you so much.
Likewise.
Just before we get started, I just want to say I am so grateful for you for taking the time to talk to me about connection, because I just could babble on about it for days.
I love I love it. And it's such an integral piece of even creating the vision for your life. We have to have connection. I mean, connection is such a vital, aspect of that. So talk to us about Connect and kind of how it came about.
Okay. So Connect is a workbook. Connect is a workbook that really is designed. The title is 100 Ways to Create Happiness in Your Life. And it's all about what I call the social influences of mental health. So the social influences of mental health are the everyday actions that we actually have control over that can impact our level of happiness, our level of mental health. And so there are so many things people go, oh, well, I'm experiencing anxiety or I'm experiencing depression. And that might be very true. You might be having those experiences of those feelings. And though the things that you do every day can contribute to that. Right? It can contribute in a positive way or contribute in a negative way. And so I don't think people recognize that, because they say, when I'm feeling depressed, it's like, that's all I want to do is just lay around and be depressed. And it's not like, well, just get up and do something, right? I mean, that is part of it, but that's not the solution for many people, right? But there are everyday things that you can do that can make you give you that burst of energy, that adrenaline rush, that will help you take that next step towards things. And so the book is really 100 different activities that can help you impact your social influences. And so the social influences are social connection, social support, social capital, social media, and social inclusion. And each of those different influences, there's 20 different activities that if you do these things, you will experience more positivity in your life. So that's the book.
I love it. And I note too that this is these are great exercises to also do if you have teens like me who are also on social media. I think the social capital one is really important because I think it shows, and I would love for you to talk a little bit more about that and just explain a little bit more about that, because I think for me too, it really showed that there are so many individuals in my life that truly create value. But I think sometimes when, especially as teens, we're so impressionable that we kind of look sometimes to those external sources.
It's true. Yeah. So the different social influences really, social connections pretty much speaks for itself. And we're experiencing, a global mental health crisis, which, the Surgeon General in the US has identified social connection is a contributing factor. So that's something that I think we all need to take into consideration. We have, over the years, decreased the number of connections we have in our lives. We used to have like 3, what they call strong ties, and now we're down to 2 strong ties. And we're about 1.5 really post COVID. So we just don't, we move away from our families. We have a very transient society. We're the only nation that, like, come 18, we kick the kids out of our house, and they're not expected to come back. And then we're surprised when they do, or we feel like we're not succeeding when they do. And other cultures, like, they're intergenerational, and that's just such a beautiful thing. So, we really need to focus on our connections, and the book gives you intentional ways to do that. The next is social support, which really focuses on, like, if I need something, there are people there for me. If I'm not feeling well, who will bring me soup? Or if I need a ride somewhere, is there somebody that can help me and support me? And you can imagine that if you don't have support in your life, how that impacts your mental health or your happiness. If I'm really stressed out and, I don't have somebody that I can count on, that's going to impact my mental health. The next is social capital, and people underestimate the value of social capital, like you mentioned, but we are successful in our lives when we have people that can help us make those important connections. Somebody who can make an introduction for us. If I'm looking for a job, somebody who can say, hey, I know somebody who's hiring. Having a mentor, somebody that you can just talk through things and think about, like, okay, what do I want in my future? This person's already arrived, and so maybe they can help me. I love, love, love being able to mentor, people that are younger than me, because it was so important to me as I was coming up to have people that I could talk to and walk things through with, and access to, influence is such an important piece. And so I think we underestimate social capital, because so many people that want to get ahead have gotten ahead by the connections and the people in their lives, and the people in their community. And so that's really important. Social media is something that, everybody's struggling with. It's here to stay. It's actually a really valuable tool when you think about it as just a tool. But so paying attention to and recognizing that we actually have the ability to manage our social media to impact our mental health is something that people don't realize. Is, as easy as it sounds, if I wasn't included in something, like, all of my friends went out for something and I wasn't invited, or I had another conflict and I couldn't go, and I'm watching it on social media, how does that make me feel? Well, I have the ability not to watch it. Like, I really do, and if I can think, like, oh yeah, that would have been nice to be there. But when you see the pictures, or you see, if you're a teenager and you see other people doing things that you want to do, and how does that impact you? Well, then put it down. And you have the ability to do that. And then social inclusion. And this is really actually where the book was born from. It's the last chapter, because I saved the best for last. I was doing research in the area of behavioral health field, because I am a licensed mental health counselor working in the field for many years, and just really, really frustrated with the way the system was designed and the inequitable outcomes that were being created. And I started looking at, I did a couple of research studies. I did a national research study with families from across the country and asked them, how do they want to have their mental health needs met? And most of the families said that they did not want to go to formal mental health treatment, that they wanted to get their mental health needs met through their family, their faith, their friends, their community. And the problem is that our community kind of, like, wasn't set up for it, And so I felt like, well, how do we put the power in the community? Like, how do we give the community the tools to support people in their mental health, as opposed to only thinking that a professional with a degree is the person that's going to solve all the problems of the world? Like, we can solve our own problems collectively together as a community when we have the tools. And so this lack of inclusion, that, feeling these inequities, was something that was like, well, let's level the playing field by giving everyday people, like, all of the tools that professionals use on a regular basis, so that we can support each other.
I love that you give people the tools, because it is something, to your point, that I think oftentimes there is such a stigma around seeking help for, if we are depressed or not opening up. I love that you have that piece in the social support around asking for help. I think the key is to identify it, because oftentimes we're afraid to ask for help or ask people. But if we have to write it down and acknowledge it, it actually, I think, connects with us a little bit better, that when we are in those moments where we truly need help, it's like, you know what, I wrote down and identified 2 to 3 people that could help me in this, and when I need it. And these are people who, and I love that our the kind of the work that, like, around goal setting and all that, because we identify so much of that too, is like, who are we going to have as our accountability partner? Who are we going to have as the person we're going to ask for help when we are not living up to the goals that we want to achieve, or we're struggling, we're not getting there and we're getting frustrated. Who are we going to identify as the person that can help us? And I think it's so powerful that you have given these tools to people. I mean, you can order this book. You have to. Like, it is, when I tell you, this is becoming one of my most favorite resources, because it's helping me through my own process. And one of the things that Dr. Julie and I were talking about, even when we were talking about having this conversation for the podcast, was, in so much of the work that I do, because I pour into other people. I mean, this is really a book for, and a workbook for anyone who pours into other people, who gives of themselves to other people, because it's a way that you can really give back to yourself and pour back into yourself and help identify, who is my social support system? Who are the people that are included in that journey? I love the social inclusion piece. And I think that that's incredibly important. What I find is that, my next question would just be, how are we, and I know that you're doing some research on this too, but how are we educating our youth? Because I feel like, even in the work that I do, like, we don't prepare our kids to goal set, and then they get to these corporate environments or these business environments, and goals are thrust upon them, and they're like, I mean, I don't really know what to do with this.
Yeah.
No one prepared me for this. They prepared me for trigonometry and for all of these other
Right.
things that I'm not using in the business space.
Very relevant.
Yes.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, most of the work that I do is with children and families for that reason, is because I feel like our youth are really struggling these days. Pre-pandemic, we were struggling. If you look at the data, we had less connections pre-pandemic. We were going in this negative direction, and our youth particularly were going in a very negative direction. And the culprit is, people go, oh, well, it's social media. And it is social media. It's actually the smartphone, not the actual social media on the phone. It's the actual phone is what is the biggest contributing factor, is just having access to everything at your fingertips. Like pre-smartphone, if you wanted to send a text, you had to push the button 3 times to get the right letter,
Yes.
so we weren't, doing it as quickly. And so it made things like super, yeah, easy and convenient. Again, an amazing tool. But so we're just about to launch a new project, which I'm really excited about. It's called Connect. It's a leadership academy, and it's designed for youth. And it's designed for youth who are really struggling. Like teachers will identify, parents will identify. It's place-based. So it would be like at a school or in a community, in a neighborhood, something but it's virtual. And so the first 6 sessions are all virtual, and you learn all about building social connections, social support, social capital, social media, social inclusion. Each session is about that. You have homework assignments, breakout rooms, or, you're all on virtual and getting connected to each other. And then in the last session, you meet in person. And so what you do is you take youth that are really struggling and isolated and experiencing loneliness, and over the 6 sessions, they learn to connect with each other virtually in a safe space, because they're in their own homes, but they're virtual. And then when they meet each other, they already really know each other. And it takes out that I don't know that I can make the connection, because they already know each other. Like,
Yeah.
I'm already really good friends with them,
Right. Right.
And so I'm really excited to launch that, because I feel like our youth really do need the tools. It's a leadership academy because not everybody gets to go. It's just for the future leaders, future leaders that really understand how important it is to connect, because they're going to learn these skills, and then they're going to have these skills for the rest of their lives to build connections, make sure they have support, know how to use capital, know how to manage their social media, and practice social inclusion. So I'm really excited about that. We're going to be launching in the next month or two.
What a phenomenal program. I'm so glad that you're launching that. And I wish that I'd had something like that when I was growing up too. I think that's the thing, is like, but I love that you're making it better for the younger generation that is up and coming. I always say, when we find a problem that we need solving, and someone comes to solve that problem. And you're right, because so much of our youth, and I know we've talked about this just in our one-off conversations, they don't know how to speak to each other. They don't know how to connect. Like they don't. And so the bigger piece of that is if we can't connect with other people and we can't communicate with them our needs, like how can we communicate what it is that we want? How can we communicate our goals? I mean, it's just like if we live in this isolation of just me, there's a lot of detrimental things that end up happening. I mean, then we become very me focused, which is a lot of what I think our society sometimes trends towards is like,
I
well,
know.
it's best for me, so I'm going to do what's best for me. And we've lost a lot of that, connectedness, like you said, that creates this kind of good of the group mentality and like,
Yeah.
let's work together. And, how can we serve each other while also making sure that we're taking care of ourselves and serving ourselves.
100%. That's what I love about the work that you do. Is that I think you really like you pour into people, but you also give them the space to create, to figure out what it is that they want so that they can achieve their goals and help them find those accountability partners so that but it's
Yeah.
all for the greater good. Like if I do what's good for me, if I take care of myself, there are so many more people that I can impact.
Hmm.
And so you, I mean, like you said, you love this book because it helps you pour into you. That's because you're giving so much to other people. Yeah, so I think we do. We have to learn to take care of ourselves, super important, but recognize, I'm not doing it for myself. When I take care of myself, I'm doing it so that I have the energy to give to others.
To each other. Yes. Oh, I love that. I love that. Thank you. That was a very kind compliment. Thank you.
No,
Coming from you, I'm like,
absolutely.
oh my gosh.
I see it in you in every conversation we have. I see how much you just really want to like give to others, but you can't do that if you're not, filling your own cup. And if they sound cliche, but we have to do that, especially in the, like I operate of service. I feel like my role on this earth is what can I do for other people, but I absolutely have to. And so people will say to me, "Oh my God, you were so great at self care." It's like, no, that's preservation. Like, that's not self care.
Right.
So that I can show up tomorrow, because
Right.
that's what I do. Is I'm constantly just like giving out
Mhm.
energy.
Yes, yes. And those are skills that, and I think this leads perfectly into my FOMO question because I read that activity and I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel like this was written for me because I have major FOMO. I've always been that person who I want to do everything. I want to do it all. But then to your point, I am depleted. I run myself ragged and then I have no energy to do anything. And then it's almost like that slingshot effect of like, I just go the complete opposite. And then I'm like, no, now I don't want to do anything because I have just given and given and given of myself and depleted. But how do we combat that? And I know there's an exercise in the workbook, which is why I want people to buy your workbook because there's so many exercises in there. But that was one that really resonated with me, and I feel like it resonates with a lot of people who kind of find themselves as like caught between like the I, I would say it triggered my people pleasing side a lot too, just because that's I
Uh,
think where the source of my FOMO comes
yeah,
from is like just wanting to please everyone and make everyone
yeah.
happy. But talk a little bit more, if you don't mind, about that exercise and just how we can kind of combat the feelings of FOMO in our life.
Well, it's so funny. Like, it's so funny we're talking about FOMO because I had FOMO this past weekend, right? So the struggle is real. I really wanted to go to this event. A good friend was putting it on. We had our daily trips, it was
Mhm.
all the things. And I had made a commitment. My younger twins are leaving for college in June. And so this year I really made a commitment to, I am not going to go out every single night with all these amazing opportunities and events. I'm going to spend time with my children. And then to top that off, my older son was home from college. So it was like, I only had a couple of days. I really, really wanted
Yeah.
to, but it was so hard to know that people that I love were doing something that I really wanted to be doing. And at the same time, I really made a commitment to my family and I wanted to be with them too. And so, I read something called JOMO, which is the joy of missing out.
Oh.
And it's such a great reframe. So it's like, if I choose to not do something that I want to do, there's that FOMO piece, right?
Mhm.
But if I can find the beauty in what I'm doing, like the beauty in what I was doing is I was spending time with my family, which is something that's really important to me.
Mhm.
Or if you're just really tired and you promise yourself a night on the couch to watch TV and eat popcorn and just either by yourself or with your hubs or whatever, like find the joy in that so that you don't realize, like you're not paying attention
Mhm.
to the what am I missing? You're paying attention to what am I gaining right now? And so I really appreciated that. Like for some reason, obviously it spoke to me because I repeat it. So I feel like just a positive reframe about recognizing the joy in missing something. I don't have to get all dressed up, and I don't have to be in front of like a lot of people, and I don't have to drink alcohol. I don't have to worry about how am I going to get home after drinking alcohol,
Right.
all of those things.
Yeah.
It's just, I get to do the thing that I really am choosing to do this time.
Mhm.
And even if it's something like, I didn't say it was like I didn't have a choice, like I wasn't invited somewhere. Because I feel like that's what a lot of our youth struggle with is they feel like, oh, my friends are all going here and they didn't invite me. And that feels icky, right? And that's like a different level FOMO, right? So what are the things that you can do for yourself at night that will make you feel special? Take a bath,
Mm.
talk to my mom, text with a friend who's not going, watch a very special movie. Like, what can you do to take care of yourself that day so
Mhm.
that you don't feel oh, I wish I was doing that. And then also put this down so
Yeah.
you don't see the pictures.
Exactly. Yes, yes. Oh my goodness. Yeah, or exactly. That when you said that I was thinking to myself, or text with your friend who was invited but her parents wouldn't let her go. Or there's
Or that too.
because there's that too. That was my parents growing up.
That is the
They're like,
struggle. That struggle is
great
very
that you were
real.
invited, but no, you're not going.
Yeah, we're going to go no with that one.
Right. Yeah. Oh, that's sweet that you got invited. Well, it's a no.
Well,
Like,
that you're invited, but you're not
but you're not
going.
going. Yeah.
But
So
we're going to do something here.
right, exactly. So no, I have this I have this sweatshirt, and I think I think it's something about like being a homebody or whatever, and it's like, just like loving being a homebody. It's actually, I think it's a Magnolia sweatshirt that I picked up when I went to visit the Magnolia in Waco, but it's basically like, like I homebody like nobody, like nobody else, it's like that is something that I'm finding as I get older that I love. I just love being home. And so this sad piece of that is I wish I could look back to my younger self and say, it's okay. Like one day you're gonna love being home. You're gonna love sitting on the couch and popping popcorn and watching a movie. And the only thing you have to worry about is getting yourself from the couch to your bed.
Right. We don't want to fall asleep on the
One day
couch.
you're gonna enjoy that and you're gonna crave that. So I say, youth is lost on our young
Yeah,
people.
right. Exactly. I'm the young.
Yes. Okay, so thinking about that too, because it was also triggered something else in your workbook around gratitude, because I love the reframe. I love you mentioned the reframe of the JOMO, of the joy of missing out. And there is such beauty in that because yes, while we might be missing out on one thing, you got the ability and the opportunity to experience another. And I think that it touches on a couple of things too that even I love to focus on, which is what are my priorities? Like, what are my priorities? And if I've set a goal, and if my goal is to, be the best mom or to spend more time with my family, then you're actually achieving that. And so you're that joy of missing out is that you're actually working towards maybe one of the goals that you identified, or and I think I shared this maybe in a conversation on another podcast episode or just with someone in passing, but crazy statistic about the time that we do have with our kids. And I think it was something that once they're 18, we will only spend a total of the equivalent of 1 year with them until the end of our life,
Oh
which was,
no, don't
I
say
know,
that.
right? Which is so sad and
That's
so
so sad.
depressing in and of itself. Cause I'm like, no, wait, no. But especially if your kids do go away for college, but even if they're home, like you're only going to see them like
Right.
weekends. You're not going to see them every weekend because they're going to be doing things at school. That I think was a guttural punch. Like that was just a punch to the gut. And I'm like, no way. This can't be true. But it is true. And
Right.
so I think that I love that in your workbook, you talk about gratitude in the brain and what the positive effect that it can have on just our overall health and well-being. And yeah, I just think that's something that we need to identify is the joy of missing out. And then that gratitude piece comes in.
So there's this book. It's called The Happier Hour, Cassie Holmes. And
Okay.
she does an activity in the book that she talks about, she's always rushing around, rushing off to work and drive her child, drive her daughter to work and, like rush. And her daughter, she decided she was going to have like, have coffee with her daughter once a week. and just on the way to school, they would stop and, have a coffee together. And obviously her daughters are drinking coffee, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just spend that time together. And she said, and then it kind of got to this, like, I don't have time for coffee today. I have so many things going on. But what she did is she realized, okay, her daughter was young at the time, like maybe 10 years old. And she's like, okay, I really only have like 8 more years with her. She's like, and then she figured out, like, okay, so this half hour of coffee, if I do it once a week, so 30 minutes times 52 weeks times 8 years. And she's like, all of a sudden I realized, and I'm making up the number now, I only have like, what I, 300 more coffees with her.
Right.
And then like next year she'd be like, and now I only have like 250 more coffees with her. So it's like but just by really, like what you said, is putting the time number on it, she became much more grateful for the opportunity to sit with her daughter and relish in that time, to be present, because she recognized it's time limited, and I have to appreciate what I have right now while I have it, because I won't have it years from now. So I think that that's a really great way to kind of conjure gratitude, is to recognize that what you're experiencing right now is something different and special, and it's not going to be around forever. So how do I appreciate it?
Yes. And there's something I always tell people, time's like our best friend and our worst enemy, right? Because we always have more. We say, like, well, tomorrow's another day, so I'm going to have more time. But then we also, we can waste time. We can lose time with people, with our loved ones. We can lose time because we're not focused on things, and we spend it, in futility and doing things that, pining away our time, worrying about so many things. So time is one of those things that, it can elude us. And
Yes.
so the more that we can spend it in gratitude, it just does and even that is a positive reframe on our brain, and it can help us just it can set us up for success. Like I just think that, the gratitude, there's, I always talk about, I actually have an episode coming out about journaling and the positive effects of
Oh,
journaling. And one of those
nice.
really is about gratitude and those affirmations, because our brain really wants to go to work to help us achieve and accomplish the things that we tell it. So if we feed it wonderful, amazing things about ourselves and kind of give ourselves those,
Totally.
yeah.
That's exactly and I mean, in terms of setting goals, because I know that's something that's really important to you, like the number one indicator of successful goal is that you have somebody who's going to be holding you accountable. Like, who's the support that's going to help you achieve that goal? Who's going to check in with you to say, did you do it? That helps you become more successful. So for me, it comes back to those connections, those support is like, I can achieve anything that I choose to achieve when I have the right people around me to support me.
I love that. Oh my gosh, I love that. I love that. Yes, and you're so right. We have to have people in our corner. We absolutely do. I think the last, just question that I have for you before kind of turning it over to your do the dang goal, because I want to know what that is for this year, because you have so much going on. Oh my gosh, you're speaking globally. You are collaborating on so many projects. I love watching all the amazing things that you're doing, and I'm a major fangirl. So, but I think my last thing would be, we talked kind of two things, and maybe we can address them both. But if not, I would say identifying your purpose is a big one that I wanted to just ask you about, and kind of how you go about throughout this workbook, and even in your work, identifying that purpose and the importance of it. And then the second thing would be, I love the take time for a vacay, or it's time for a vacay activity, because I talk often about celebrating the small wins, and actually vacation, travel, when we think about kind of our top goals, number one is always health and wellness. Financial freedom is typically number two, but number three is right up there. Travel. People want to take the trip. Yet when people are asked, they will put the trip off over other things time and time and time again. So it's up there. It's like, we want to do it, but we don't make time for
We
it.
don't prioritize it. I know.
Yes.
I know. So, yeah. I will say, again, for me, myself, when it comes to like the trip, the vacay, I was doing a ton of traveling in the beginning of this year. And it was actually too much. It was like over a 3-week period. I think I was home like 3 nights. And I was like, and some of it, I was traveling with my family. Like we were looking at colleges. We went to Disney World, woo, like things
Yay!
like that. So some of it was with my
Yeah.
family, but a lot of it was work related, speaking events and whatnot. And I had this moment where it was like, again, thinking about the time, it's like my children are leaving very soon. And here I am like traveling the world, because I was doing some international travel too. And I was like, what am I doing? And so I grounded myself. I
Mm.
intentionally grounded myself and I was like, that is it. Minimal travel. I pushed everything back to third and fourth quarter if I could. And just so I can be present and be, here with my family, and of course I have teenagers who don't really want to spend that much time with me, but nonetheless, nonetheless, my goal was to be around
Yeah.
for those 5 minutes here and there, to your point about only if you add it all together, you get 1 year. I
Right.
get 5 minute blocks, but nonetheless, it was like, that was really important to me, so I have the vacay stuff over there and it'll be there when I'm ready. But I do think it's really important to recognize what are your priorities, and you mentioned about purpose and creating your purpose. For me, when I think about my purpose, first and foremost is to be a parent. Like I want to raise happy, healthy young men into this world. And so that I was able to prioritize what I was doing because I had that in mind about my purpose, you know? So I do think it's really important. There is an activity in the book about creating your purpose statement. I have my purpose statement. I live my purpose statement on a regular basis. It's to spread my energy and positivity to make the world a better place. Like that is my purpose. And then when it comes to kind of like those smaller goals, I've kind of reframed the way that I do goals because the research around goals is, like once you achieve it, you just set the next goal.
Right.
Like when you're on that dream vacation, you're thinking about on our next vacation, we'll do this. Or when you're sitting at this amazing meal, you're like, what are we going to have for our next meal?
Right.
And it's like, wait a second, just stop. Let's just
Right.
appreciate what we're doing. So now what I try to do when it comes to like goals is I try to think about like framing them in different ways. It's not like achieving. Like for me, doing the TED Talk was a big goal. I was like, yes, I want to do this TED Talk. And it was amazing. And I'm so grateful that I had my people there celebrating and cheering me on. And it was a surreal experience. And I am incredibly grateful for that. And then as soon as it was done, I was like, okay, what's next?
Yeah.
And I had to catch myself and say, stop, just stop. I was like literally 2 weeks later traveling to Toronto to do a similar talk. And it was just like, okay, stop, like you just have to like really begin to try to figure out how do we savor these
Mhm.
moments to appreciate them and think about like time for reflection, time to just kind of like small celebrations, all of those things so that you really do genuinely appreciate them instead of just eating up the next goal.
Mhm.
So I mean, of course, everybody I can't say everybody. I always have goals.
Yeah.
Like that's just how I operate. Because my mind just thinks that way. But so my goals this year, I want my children to go off to college. Happy and that is a really important thing for me to make
Yeah.
sure that on a personal level for sure that I want to be there for my children to make sure that they can successfully launch off into college and all of that, which is all encompassing these days because there's so many moving parts when you have two of them. It's like, okay, I did this for this, now I did this for that, I did this for this, let's do this. It's not, like it's simultaneous. And then I have another one that's also in school. So there's always that floating around up there too. Professionally, I've been doing a lot of writing, which is really fun. I've been, this book, which is, this is my baby. But then, I've written chapters in 3 other books recently, which has been really nice to be a contributor because you're part of a community, that so I've really appreciated that and the ability to do some writing, which takes away from time because I really need headspace to write. And I don't know, I'm just continuing to research. We're going to be launching this new project, which I really hope is helpful for kids and families. That's a big priority is like giving youth the tools that they need to move forward. So those are my big goals.
Awesome. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. So, which one out of all of those are you like, oh, it's the do the dang. This is the one. Like, if all else, like, I'm getting this one done.
So I have a really big one that I really want to create a movement like that. I really feel like in terms of youth is I really want them to get behind this connection where I want them to embrace it.
I got
So I mean,
chills.
I know. I don't know that that's going to happen this year because the movement doesn't happen just because I said
Yeah,
it's going to happen.
but I
But it
love it. I
really,
love it.
I feel like youth need to take control of this aspect of their lives.
Mhm.
And so, this is the one that, the Project Connect is part of it and getting it started. But I want youth to begin talking about how important connections are. They talk about their mental health because it's like the buzzwords and whatever, but I don't think they intentionally practice ways to connect better or differently. And I want them to.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
want them to
I
value
agree.
it.
I agree. And I'm so glad you spoke that into existence on the podcast so
Mm.
that we
Ah,
can help
yeah.
support. Yes, I know. No, I would just say, Dr. Julie, thank you so much. This has been amazing and you're
Thank you.
fantastic. Like I said, where can people find you and connect and all of the things?
All of the things. Well, the
Yeah.
Connect is on Amazon. So just, type in Connect 100 ways and it pops up for sure. And then you can find me on, social, collectively underscore us is Instagram and by my name, Dr. Julie Radlauer on LinkedIn. And then my website, which is, collectivelyus.org. So I'm sure that'll be in the show notes, right?
Yes, yes. We'll link everything in the show notes so that you can find Dr. Julie. Definitely go follow her. She's doing so many amazing things. I'm so thankful. And we're going to have you back on to discuss mental health in May because I really want to focus in on mental health in the month of May for the listeners. We have so many, moms and business owners and business women, entrepreneurs, etc. Like our mental health is so important and I love that we've started to create more space for it, but I still think it's not enough. Like it just has to be a constant conversation. And I think the pandemic really kind of flipped the lid on a lot of what it uncovered a ton that we weren't addressing.
Yeah.
But there's still so much more that we're going to scratch the surface on throughout our conversation in May. So I'm just
I
really looking forward to it.
Thank you. And I'm so grateful to you. I love the work that you're doing. I love that we're working together on projects. That
Yes.
brings me joy, which was my word for the year. My word for 2024 was joy.
Oh my
So
God, I love
being here
that.
today brings me joy. So I'm grateful to you for that.
Oh, well, thank you so much. And yes, this has been so joy filled for me as well. I really appreciate you coming on. And guys, go get Connect, seriously. And especially if you have teens, if you have, like tweens, these are great discussion topics. Like I get a lot of questions from listeners about how to engage children in conversations around their goals or how do we vision board as a family. Guys, this is like a perfect supplement to that. And I think you do both in connection. You help them with the goals. And then, oh my gosh, these are the conversation starters. These are the things that are like, how are we now going to get connected with our goals? So it is the perfect marriage. I love that. And I too love that we're collaborating on some projects coming up. And I can't wait to share some of those with everyone as well. But thank you so much. I really appreciate having you on. You have just,
Thank you.
yes, this has been delightful.